Hey everybody, Sean Flanagan here from IMET Seminars, and I'm really excited about today. I got Jon. Jon's on a Zoom call today, and we're going to be talking a little about his specialty courses that are going to be coming up here in November, and then we have them coming in next year too. So definitely get online and check those out. We're going to talk about the sports course today, as well as the pelvic health course, so that you guys have a good idea of what we have coming on and what Jon brings to the table. So give me a rundown of the pelvic health course. It's both for
Oh
men
yeah,
and women and everything. Let's get into that real quick.
yeah. Well, do you know what? I've just come off teaching that over here, and in fact, this last week taught it twice. I taught it over in Dubai, came back, taught it in the UK. Going back out next week, teaching it again. Really into that at the moment. For me, one of the biggest areas you can make a difference with needling is like women's and pelvic health. I suppose again the difference in my course to other courses that I've seen out there is that again, the idea of pelvic health that I see with needling tends to be very direct. It tends to be about what I would refer to as like structural needling. So I suppose I tend to split up my approaches in needling for, I'm going to say women's slash pelvic health, because it's bigger than pelvic health into other things. But also, it's not just women's health because it affects men as well. So I kind of have to put that slash in there so people know that it's going to cover all those bases. So I suppose one of the things that I do is I separate it into two ideas more than anything: structural needling and systemic needling. And if I suppose just qualify those for a moment. So when we look at structural needling, we're looking at lumbar pelvic. So we're looking at anatomical structures that we're needling directly for pain related to those structures. So down into the pelvic floor, and talk about the pelvic floor in sort of two ways. You've got the, I suppose, like the structure of the pelvic floor, and then you've got the superficial structures of the pelvic floor as well. So we can we can needle those. We can get into those specific structures as well. I've always found it odd, the line that people draw from MSK to women's health. It kind of, you get to piriformis, and as soon as you draw that line underneath, that becomes women's health. And obviously, the anatomy doesn't know the difference. People draw an arbitrary line about where the pelvic floor starts and so on, and what that means to function. And yes, we draw a line there anatomically, but that doesn't mean function-wise you do. And the interrelationship of everything that goes on in the lumbar and the pelvic floor is so integral. So we have the structural needling that deals with that. And I do find that a lot of courses focus on that, which is great because it's very, very useful. But what I also find is the area that's lacking is the understanding of how you influence things like the bladder and the bowel peripherally. So I'll talk about viscerotomes. I'll talk about how we influence sympathetic, parasympathetic effect in the bladder, how we influence central effects, how we can influence things as diverse as overactive bladder to vulvodynia to hot flushes. So we're covering the spectrum. The spectrum is actually really, really broad. I'm going to be doing the same thing again with this course that I talked about the sports, which is taking all the stuff that I teach, and it's a very, very broad spectrum, and bringing in the greatest hits to give people a flavor of all the things they can start to treat beyond just sticking needles in the pelvis. I do a lot of abdominal needling, but it's not for the abdomen. Strange enough, it's for the bladder, it's for the bowel. This might raise some eyebrows, depends where people sit on this. And I'm not talking acupuncture here, I'm just talking needling. I'm talking physiology, but I'll needle for things like fertility, I'll needle for, polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, so many things, because when we look at the evidence, and this is entirely coming from a physiological evidence base as well, my approach to needling for women's health is very much related to the published literature. We'll do a lot of electrostim with that, but not how people think, not how you're used to using it for MSK pain, which is, remember colleagues saying, ride the lightning.
Yeah.
We're not doing that. If anyone gets that reference, we're not doing that. Show your age. We're not doing that one. We're being subtle. Whisper to the cells, don't shout at them. They know how to respond. The central nervous system knows how to modulate. And all we're doing is we're coaxing it into a homeostatic and healing and reactive state where it's going to do what it needs to do. We're going to be talking about how we can influence segmental and central, sympathetic, parasympathetic, but not just for things like visceratomes, not just for bowel and bladder, but how you can affect this for hormonal headaches, how you can affect it for a variety of other things. And the scope that we can expand just through the physiology. And I don't want anyone to get a little bit afraid here. We're not talking sandals and candles. We're talking physiology, and we're staying in lane, and we're staying on target with that. But the scope of what you can do once you start to understand the interaction is fantastic. And I found, the profound effects that I've seen clinically far outstrip any of the things you can do regarding pain. That changing someone's bowel or bladder function is so much more rewarding when you see the lifestyle change for them than it is just for treating back pain. And I'm not trivializing back pain there, but what I'm saying is how great like some of the other things are. We could talk about IBS, we could talk about all the other things as well. And I think what people need to understand is obviously all these things have a physiological driver, and we can influence those drivers. And that's all we're talking about, is how do we tap in and influence visceratomal and central sympathetic and parasympathetic effects. You can do it a number of ways. It's just the needle is really useful if you know how to use it. And if you know how to layer up those effects, it's game changing. Just completely game changing for your client base and for you, because of I find the rewards, just how patients respond to it when they it seems so strange that you're going to put some needles in somebody and it's going to do this. But the problem with that is people have a predetermined idea of what's going on, and you've got to take that out. We've got to strip it down, look at the evidence. We've got to look at the pathophysiology. We've got to look at the mechanisms, and there's clear connections there. And once we start to explore those, nobody should be worried about where it's going, because it's on track. We're where we need to be with those things. What it is, it's just understanding different layers of mechanisms. Because again, one of the problems with MSK that I find in the UK, particularly, is if you're an MSK clinician, look at it this way: if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything you look at is a nail. So if you're MSK, everything's an MSK problem. So therefore, you need to needle it like an MSK problem. But the central nervous system doesn't work like that. The body doesn't work like that. It's a little bit more fluid than that, and it doesn't categorize itself into those notions so much. Yes, we can use the MSK structures to influence other things. So yeah, we can needle those. We're not putting these needles in bizarre places that we've never heard of before. But what you're going to see is I'll needle certain areas, and people are immediately thinking, "Oh, are you treating like a knee problem, or are you treating an ankle problem?" No, I'm treating this. They'll be like, "Wow!" And I said, "It's perineural. Let's have a look at the anatomy. Let's have a look at where we access these this stimulation, this facilitation we can get to the central nervous system. How do we access these things?" And once you start to understand that, and you only need to understand it from a rudimentary sense as a clinician to be able to utilize it, but it really opens up your game. And I'm very excited about getting over there, because I think this is the first time we've officially taught women's pelvic health, and pelvic health there, because men's health as well, all sorts of things we can do.
This is the first this course over here, and we're advertising it as a pelvic health management course, because it goes so far beyond just the MSK approach to. We understand the pelvic floor and the trigger point model and the MSK referred pain and fascial pain, and you'll get the greatest hits of those. We're not going to be doing any internal evaluation or anything in this course, so you don't have to worry about that. But it's going to be the greatest hits of hitting those MSK points that are the big hitters But then the genius of this course is just being able to go in and look at the parasympathetic and sympathetic input into the bowel and bladder, and how we can influence digestion, and how we can influence overactive bladder, and then even for the men, the pelvic floor pain, the chronic pain, erectile dysfunction, and different things. Is that's the excitement of it. It's being able to manage these things versus going in and finding a mechanical MSK point that's the problem. It's how do we influence that region? How do we influence the systems? And it broadens it. I know a lot of courses advertise those kind of things, but they've not been trained in the depth and breadth of how to do that like you. So it's going to be really exciting to see people's minds go, hey, I see this a lot, and if I just add these couple things in, the impact I can have on chronic pain and trauma and different things, because that shows up a lot with pelvic floor for both men and women, and post-surgical things, and so I'm just really excited about this class, and it's going to be hugely beneficial for men and women's pelvic health specialists.
Yeah, I mean, I've been treating women's pelvic health for 20 years. I kind of, it was never my intention to do it. I was kind of thrown into that position because I took the attitude that I never turn anyone away if I thought I could help them. So probably I was a little bit more adventurous than some of my colleagues at the time into what I would treat, because I always feel like an obligation to treat if I can. So it grew into digestive health to start with, and then women's health from there, because obviously going from bowel into bladder was just an easy transition. Sounds wrong, but there we go. And so it taught me a lot about digestive system, and then got into the reproductive system, and then got more into the mechanics of what's going on there as well. And that grew over, and that's grown over like 20 years of clinical practice. So again, the stuff I talk about, very much like on the sports course, is coming from a place of test retest. Did it change it? Did it not change it? Where are we going from here? It's not coming from theoretical base. It's not coming from I saw this in a study, so I think I'll try this. Yes, that's what's informed my decision making, my practice to start with, but then it was the application of that over the years that's led me to this point. And ironically, and this sounds crazy, but for 20 years I tried to give that work away to colleagues because I thought, oh no, I don't know enough about this, I don't know enough. And 20 years later, I find I'm still doing it, and people are still coming to me and asking me about how to do these things, and I'm still treating people, and I'm still getting results, and people are still coming back to me and saying, oh yeah, I've noticed this, I've noticed that. And again, guys that I've taught will reach back out to me and say, oh, thank you for showing me this. This was great for this. Oddly enough, last week in Dubai, I bumped into a guy he's from Greece. I hadn't seen him in about 8 or 9 years, and I taught him in London 8 or 9 years ago. And he reached out to me a few years ago, just by email. I can't remember where he was working. And he asked me about some points for inducing labour. Again, there's evidence for this, so stay there with it, but inducing labour. So I gave him some points, and he went away. And then whilst I was teaching on the course last week, he introduced me to his wife, who was also a PT from Greece, that he met when he was in London. And that was the woman who he induced labour in. It was his own wife, his own child. And she came up to me and she thanked me. She said, oh, thank God for those points. That made a big difference. I'm like, oh, there we go. The story's come full circle. And it was kind of nice to have it from a patient years later that it was beneficial. So then she'd come on a course to train with me to find out what it was all about. So that was a nice circle round. But we'll be talking about N=1 again. We're talking about problem solving. And I suppose what's different about these two courses, if you've done courses in sport or you've done courses in pelvic health before, the difference in this is there's going to be layers here that you haven't encountered. And there's going to be discussion, there's going to be techniques that you haven't done, there's going to be application. And not only, it's not it's never just about where you put the needle. You know, two most important things about needling is where you put the needle and what you do with it. And we're going to be challenging those ideas as well with this. So again, I'm going to say it's going to be some fun. It's going to be interesting. We're going to learn something. Going to share some ideas. I'm going to learn some things off you guys as well. Always do. So looking forward to it. I'm so excited I am.
It's going to be a long time. It's been a long time, so I'm looking forward to it. Again, if you influence pelvic health therapists and you want to get Jon around the people you influence, reach out to me and we can host some courses and some different things next year as he's coming out and see you on the course. So we're really excited about that. Jon, thanks for sharing that. I think it's going to be amazing. It's going to be amazing. 2022 will be a great time here in the U.S., but meet with us next month and kind of get your feet wet and see what we're all about here. I have a couple of announcements as we're kind of getting into this here. We do have some courses coming up. So his sports course is going to be here in Phoenix, November 13th and 14th. That's going to be the only offering this year. We'll also have one next year with that. And then we also have coming up is the pelvic health course will be in Atlanta, Georgia, November 6th and 7th. And then it'll be here in Phoenix, November 20th and 21st. So Jon will be here with us those first three weeks of November. We also have some of our foundational courses coming up. So DIN-2 will be coming up here in Atlanta next weekend, October 22nd and 24th. And then we'll jump into DIN-3 here. Let's see, there's DIN-2 in Phoenix, November 5th and 6th, 6th, 7th. So those are your two opportunities for DIN-2. But we'll also have DIN-1 is going to be in Atlanta, November 19th, 20th, and 21st. And then again in Phoenix, December 17th, 18th, and 19th. So those are just great opportunities for you to kind of come in and really see what we're all about. If you've taken any type of needling before, you can attend one of our advanced courses. We'll respect your prior learning. If you want to learn the Hobbs Master Needling System, the dynamic integrative needling system, that really comes from a segmental approach that looks at dermatomes, myotomes, bristlectomes, sclerotomes even. If you want to learn that and you've had previous needling, we give a significant discount to honor your prior learning. So check us out online. Look forward to seeing you in a class. And Jon, I'm really, really looking forward to seeing you here in a few weeks so we can get together, have some laughs, and just really just get to learn. It's just always a learning opportunity. And you're just a humble teacher and run a classroom that's respectful. So it's also fun. I'm looking forward to it.
That's great. And if guys want to check me out on LinkedIn, Jonathan Hobbs, check me out on there. And Instagram, Hobbs Acupuncture, because that's what I'm known for in the UK. I'm the head of the Acupuncture Association of Chartered Physios, which is the biggest needling organisation in the UK. So you can check me out there as well. But yeah, looking forward to getting over there and making some new friends, having some fun, sharing some ideas, and see what we get.
Yeah, right. Looking forward to it. All right, Jon, we'll
Okay.
talk to you soon.
Thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye. Cheers.
Cheers.